Good evening, everyone. My name is Yufei Wang, and we're here to talk about the evolving game mechanics in esports first-person shooter games. First, let's talk about motivation. Esports hold all this revenue, viewers, and gamers that making and maintaining a trending esports game is on every game company's wish list. Amongst the hottest games in esports, the first-person shooter game genre is taking near half of the spotlight. From a game designer's perspective, it is intriguing how similar game mechanics evolved over the years. In this paper, I broke my background section into three parts: definitions and the history of esports, academic research on the esports FPS games, and then the exploration on FPS related game mechanics. Eventually, I wish to establish an evolution model for esports FPS game mechanics, find patterns, and predict future trends in this genre. Moving on to findings and products, the method section. I listed all the esports FPS games since 1998, but I couldn't watch and learn all of the esports FPS games ever, so I had handpicked 12 games by the rationale of largest prize pools and most viewership at given years. Then I chose 15 videos that have the most views from the official channels and properly represent the official gameplays of these games. I watched all of them over and over and also recorded timestamps matching game mechanics with the guideline of a taxonomy of game mechanics by Jesse Shell. I coded the video content and also some extra sources into a diagram of game mechanics. Then, essentially, this is the process of the content analysis for this thesis, and my advisor and I ran a cross-validation, made some quick adjustments to finalize the codes. In the results section, I used Sankey diagram for data visualization of my coding diagram. However, this Sankey diagram was too big to handle, so I had to dissect the whole diagram into 7 sections corresponding to the 7 categories of game mechanics. For example, here's the Sankey diagram for the game mechanics under the space category. From this diagram, we can know that only Call of Duty Warzone had a discrete playzone named the Gulag, functions as a minigame for a second chance in the main battlefield. Other than that, playzones in these esports FPS games are all continuous. And as for dimensions, even though FPS games are all 3D settings, only certain games have the maps for vertical gameplay in multiple layers. Then for boundaries, the Battle Royale games abandoned the traditional playzone style limited by the walls and created large enough maps that functions more on an open world level, bringing in new rules and new challenges for the players. As we get to the final segment, discussion and conclusion, I have to take a step back and reflect on how we started with limitation and future work. There were not enough research at the crossroad of esports and FPS games, not to mention that I also have to make use of game mechanics as a systematic review of similar games. Then my innovative methods for content analysis is far from solid, but it was the best way I see fit at the time. Also, 12 games out of hundreds and 15 videos out of millions were not representative enough for my content analysis. Anyway, for conclusion, there are certain trends in esports FPS games evolving from the simple flavored arena shooter to various versions of team tactics, then onto the chaotic clash of battle royales. By reading between the lines of game mechanics, we could identify the main differences that make an esports FPS game unique, and what players are addicted to. Esports FPS games are expanding in various directions, and the genre is still holding large potential for the upcoming years. I predict that future esports FPS games will be focusing on balancing the amount of abilities and shooting. And more abilities that require high skill will be the key to success for a new game in this genre. And that's all for evolving game mechanics in esports FPS games. Thank you all for listening.